ATP, what it do with your boy Claymore Rain? What's good, family? Shout out to all my subscribers. If this is your first time tapping into this content, listen, man, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and hit your subscribe button, hit your bell icons, so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. So, Jaron Boots Ennis, Brian Norman Jr., it comes to an end, right? We about done with it. Jaron Boots Ennis now in a purse bid with Karen Kukajagin. That Eddie Hearn has lost the bid. Jaron Ennis is entertaining as to whether or not he's heading to go to Germany to go and defend his IBF title, or is he going to vacate and go to 154? And Brian Norman Jr. on the other side of this conversation has a fight lined up with Mr. Cuevas on the undercard of Keyshawn Davis on November 8th on a Friday night. Final thoughts on it. Well, let's get right to it and keep it 100. Number one, let's answer some questions. Who is the duck in this situation? Who's the duck in this situation? Well, look, if you guys know anything about me, you'll get to learn. That's not really my position to sit here and call out ducks. I know some people might consider that riding the fence, not standing on any one point specifically. But I disagree, right? I disagree. I am standing on a point of being here for boxing and anything that has something to do with boxing. Legitimately, I'm sure on both sides of the argument, people can come up with reasons as to why they feel one side ducked the other side, right? But I'll tell you what. One thing I do know is that there was a fight on the table. And the fight could have been put together. Both sides of the conversations could have helped the fight move forward. On the obvious side of Brian Norman Jr. and his father, Brian Norman Sr., and his representation on that side of this negotiation could have conceded X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars to make this fight go through, right? And this is based upon whether or not they actually want, whether or not it was more important for them to become a unified champion for their legacy, whether or not it was important for them to jump on an opportunity that may be once in a lifetime. Who knows if Brian Norman Jr. and his team will ever see an offer like that on the table. Obviously wishing them the best luck and success. If they are successful and they're able to defend their title and then get into some unification titles, somewhere down the line, these opportunities may come back around. But, these fighters put their life on the line. They take big risks to be in the ring and compete with fighters such as themselves, elite fighters who are prepared to do whatever they have to do to win. Their health is on the line. So you would think an opportunity like this, $1.75 million is something, and not to mention combined with the legacy aspect of it, as far as becoming a unified champion in one of the main divisions, right? The welterweight division is a notorious division. Great division to be a unified champion in, and would put him ahead of all of his peers, being Stanionis and Mario Barrios. He'd be the top dog in the division. So he passed up on that opportunity and chose business over legacy. And this is their prerogative, right? This is their prerogative. He has a career. They have a team. They're meeting on things. This is what they find to be more important, is the principle of getting as much money as they can and not being treated as quote unquote peasants, right? Now you have on the other side of the argument, Jaron Boots Ennis, who's been struggling since early 2023, maybe late 2022, on trying to put himself in position to not only gain himself a title at welterweight, but also aspirations of unifying and ultimately becoming undisputed at 147 pounds. We watched him do this, right? All through the whole entire quote unquote love triangle situation that was going on in between Errol Spence's camp and Terrence Crawford's camp. And of course, in the middle, getting looked over while this is happening is Jaron Boots Ennis. One might say that the division hasn't been too nice to him, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get into any fights. Eddie Hearn going ahead and taking Jaron Boots Ennis in as a client and offering his services to say, listen, I'm going to work as hard as I can to go ahead and secure these fights. I understand that undisputed at 147 is very important to you and your team. And if it's important to you, it's important to us. So let's go ahead and get it done. But is there a certain extent that anybody's willing to go to in order to get these things accomplished. One might argue that Boots Ennis not conceding to $300,000 more than what was being offered to Brian Norman Jr. might show his lack of commitment to becoming undisputed, to being a unified champion. Because one could argue that the offer is there on the table, it's there, it's tangible in comparison to his peers, as far as, like I said, Stanionis and Barrios, who don't seem to be interested in getting in the ring with him at all. This Brian Norman Jr. is on a different energy, right? His energy is, I'm willing to go in the ring with you. Let's go ahead and do it in your backyard. We can get it there right in front of all your fans, but here's my price point. This is what I need to feel whole in order to be able to help facilitate a big fight for you, being that you're approaching me with the offer. Look, when it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, both sides came to one understanding. This ain't worth it. All of this ain't worth it. What is this? This is the amount of money, the amount of frustration, the uphill battle for Jaron Boots Ennis, knowing that if he goes ahead and he does concede and give this to Brian Norman Jr., well, what precedent does that set for the rest of his negotiations in this division and on this journey he has of becoming unified champion? If he's having to concede and give $2 million to Brian Norman for an opportunity, what is he going to have to give Mario Barrios? What is he going to have to give Emiantis Stanionis? Hope I said that correct. What hoops is he going to have to jump through, and what guarantees is he going to have that he can make this happen? And how profitable is it to go on this mission that you're not even guaranteed to win, right? You have to believe that when Eddie Hearn and Jaron Boots Ennis met up and they had their conversation about how this process was going to work, what the relationship was going to look like between Jaron Boots Ennis and Matchroom Boxing, specifically with Eddie Hearn as his leader of promotions, right? You'd have to think that Eddie Hearns did entertain a backup plan. What if the unification is not feasible? What if these fighters choose not to fight you no matter what we offer them? See, boxing is an interesting sport, ladies and gentlemen, because everybody doesn't have to fight everybody. Now, morally, ethically, yes, everybody should fight everybody. But the reality of the situation is this is not prerequisite that you will fight every single person that comes in front of you. So at some point, you would think Jaron Boots Ennis would take that into consideration and say, listen, if this doesn't work, here's our plan B that I'm okay with, which I'm sure Eddie Hearn has presented to the team. And people are now complaining about Eddie Hearn not giving enough money away to make this fight happen, and also with even giving into a bid war with Karen Kukudashian's representation, right? Guys, put this into perspective that Eddie Hearn never wanted that fight. Jaron Boots Ennis never wanted that fight. His fans don't want that fight. Philadelphia doesn't want that fight. Nobody wants to see that fight again, because the last fight was a 12-round shutout that Jaron Boots Ennis was one of the most boring matches, if not the most boring match that Jaron's ever been involved in, as Karen was running all around the ring for 12 rounds, right? So it's not so much that Eddie Hearn lost the bid, it's that he gave the bid away. He has a 3 to 4 fight deal with Jaron Boots Ennis, partnership. One of those fights included a David Avanesian fight that happened a month or two ago. So why would he waste his resources, Eddie Hearn that is, on putting together a fight that nobody wants to see? It's not going to be profitable. Just like the Sandor Martin fight with Devin Haney, Eddie Hearn has opted to allow, it's reasonable to argue that Eddie Hearn has allowed Karen Kukudashian's side of the conversation to go ahead and win that bid, pay for the fight. And Jaron Ennis now has a bigger decision to make. Does he vacate the titles that he has right now, the title that he has right now in the IBF, and allow Kukudashian to fight the next man up to go ahead and get that championship belt? And at that point, decide to move to 154 when he's said and done? Or does he stay, defend the belt, and continue to try to wait for an opportunity to unify at 147? Guys, it's no secret that me personally, I've been saying this for a long time, that I think Jaron Boots Ennis should consider going to 154. I think the evidence has been there well before Eddie Hearn that division is trying to freeze him out, and they don't want to get him involved in these championship fights because he's probably going to win. 154 is where there's a lot more big fights to be made. Jaron Boots Ennis is a prize fighter. First, there's no prize at 147. No. There's no prize at 147 for him. The prize is probably going to be at 154. So, all in all, what matters to me is the end game. And the end game is, can Jaron Boots Ennis realistically unify and become undisputed at 147? I mean, that's between Jaron Ennis and his management and promoter and Eddie Hearn to discuss and come to a conclusion of. But I don't need to call one person a duck over another person, because ultimately my interest as the content creator is to cover boxing and good fights, not to cover fantasy nonsense or point my finger in any one particular boxer's direction to call them a quote unquote duck. I mean, we're all human. We can see a situation we don't like and call it as it is. But me personally, I have no reason to call anybody a duck. You know, it doesn't make any sense. For me, moving forward, we understand that there's no fight and Jaron Ennis has decisions to make. Brian Norman Jr. has made his own decisions already, and they're moving forward with it. Now, I will hold some issues with, in my opinion, and it's not even real issues, but I do believe that Brian Norman Sr. doing this social media campaign that he's going on right now, which borderline discredits Boots in many different ways and different responses that he has to certain questions, is probably unnecessary at this point. Let's be honest, unless there's a fight in the conversation and something that's close to coming to fruition, then what are we talking about? Today, they're supposed to have a press conference for the Keyshawn Davis card that Brian Norman is on. I'm not sure if he'll be part of that press conference, but you have other things that you could be speaking on rather than focusing your energy on pointing fingers at Boots. Some people might think it's a deflection from your own shame, from your own opportunity that you tricked yourself out of. It shows a little uneasiness with you and how the situation's turned out when you're trying to push a facade out there that this makes no difference to you one way or another. The social media, the interviews on the different YouTube channels with the content creators, it does, from the outside looking in, look a little suspect. Other than that, though, handle your business, brother. Whatever you see fit for your child, whatever your child sees fit for themselves. I'll go on record to say that I think that offer was decent, a 1.75. It was an opportunity, more importantly, for Brian Norman to step his legacy game up and become a unified champion at 23 years old. I think he passed on it for a couple $100,000. And as far as Boots is concerned, I'm pretty sure that Boots considered it, all right, I could win and win this title, become unified, but ultimately, how much further past that point am I going to get? Maybe we should just let the whole thing go and just look into greener pastures, which is in the land of Turkey, Saudi Arabia, right? So let's see what they come up with. Let's see what they do. You guys let me know in the comments who's the duck. I mean, I think I know what most of you guys think is a duck. Is it that important? What does it matter to us? What does it matter to you who the duck is? What's more important is the fight getting put together. You guys let me know what you think. It's your boy Rain. Hey, shout out to everybody who's watching this video. Like I said earlier, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit your bell icon so you get alerts when this content is dropping. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much for supporting us, guys. The channel is moving slowly but for surely. We are getting the recognition. Shout out to my brother Blue. Catch me on Blue Blood Sports Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 3:30. Usually, I think today we're starting about 4:30, but at 3:30 is a normal time. We go up and live, and I help co-host Blue Blood's show. And then, of course, in the evenings, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, you know, we have our wrap-up shows and our night shows that we have open panels at the end of the evening as well. So feel free to stop by. But on that note, and at this point, it's your boy Rain. We was here, and now we out.